Good morning, and to our friends joining us abroad, good evening. Welcome to Mirage Talk. Today, we are touching on the topic, attracting and retaining top talent. We bring to you the Director of Software Engineering from Autonomous Vehicles at Cruise, Yaron Gabbai, to touch on the subject and enlighten our Mirage tribe. Yaron, thank you so much for joining us today. Let's get started.
Awesome. Thank you for the introduction. Can you guys hear me?
Perfect.
Good. Okay. Awesome. Good. So hi everybody. Thank you for joining this presentation about attracting and retaining top talent. Thank you. Special thanks for the people from Israel who are joining late at night. So what I'm going to be covering today on the agenda is quick introduction, a little bit about myself, my background, and then we'll deep dive into the topic of attracting top talent and retaining top talent. Then I'm going to leave some time at the end for Q&A, so we can keep questions to the end. If you have something that you want to ask during the session, just put it in the chat, and then we'll see if there are questions. We can always pause and answer, but I want to make sure that we have enough time to cover everything. So just ask questions there. So in terms of my introduction, so I've been around 20 years in the software industry. My lot of experience in building high performance teams, attracting, retaining top talent from companies, small size to large size. I also have some experience as an entrepreneur. I had a startup company that I co-founded, and I was the CTO for around 6 years. So can relate to some of the things that many of you guys are doing. And in terms of my kind of like area of expertise, so I started mostly in the enterprise software business in engineering and many leadership positions. And then over the years, I moved more toward robotics space, and within robotics, primarily into self-driving cars, which is what I've been doing for the last, I would say, 6 to 7 years. So I'm currently with Cruise. Cruise is a self-driving company, call it a small 3,000 employee startup. Connected a lot to our culture and values, and we'll talk about it a lot as I go through the rest of the presentation. But it's really high-paced, top talent, a lot of A-type people in the company, moving really, really fast. The company is focusing on building self-driving technology. My team is mostly software engineers and machine learning engineers. And we're building the software, the foundation of the software that's running on the AV and on the cloud to enable the self-driving technology. I'm going to play a short video here while I'm talking with some without the audio, so you can see there we go. You see the subtitle here, but this video is just a quick demonstration of the technology. So this is a video we recorded last summer with customers, paying customers using our technology, the robotaxi service in San Francisco. This is a commercial service that we launched last summer, and this is just sharing some of the experience of our clients. It's very, very exciting technology, very sophisticated, and takes a lot of talent, top talent to build, competing with some of the large companies out there on getting people with the necessary robotics machine learning experience. So that's why I'm very passionate about it, and I'm going to talk about it during the presentation. Just in terms of, I'm not going to do like a self-driving talk here, because that's another area that I can talk about for hours. But just touching a little bit, so the car you see on the car you see on the left, this is the Chevy Bolt. That's the platform we're using for the service. So you can see a modified Chevy Bolt with all the sensors, all the computers, all the technologies in there. And it's operating like an Uber without a driver. So you basically open the app, you order your driver, your car, and the car arrives without the driver. You hop in the back, and it takes you to your destination. At the peak of our operation, we had around 400 of them working 24/7 in San Francisco with customers using it, which is very a really great experience and a lot of learning at how to scale such a complex technology. The car you see next to it to the right is the purpose-built car that we're building together with General Motors. And this is a car that is built from the ground up for robotaxi. So you can see it looks like a little pod, and there is like no driver functions in there, no steering wheels, no pedals, nothing. So you just hop in. There is 2 benches. You sit in and it takes you to your destination. And this car is in development right now. Before Cruise, I worked for another company, also in the self-driving space, called Brain Corporation. It's a company in San Diego. I joined this company really early stages. What Brain was doing is we were basically taking industrial cleaning machine, like the one you see there on the left, that usually is driven by a human to clean floors in like industrial buildings or in the retail space. And we converted those vehicles to drive autonomously. So when I started with this company, there were like very few engineers in the organization. We had, I think, maybe 2 or 3 pilots running in Home Depot, a few other retails. And when I left 3 years later, I was able, we built together a pretty large robotics organization. And what's most interesting is that we're able to commercialize the technology. And today, if you go to any Walmart in the US, late at night, you might see one of these called the giant Roombas, cleaning the floors without anybody driving them, which took a lot of effort, to build. And again, very strong, connection to the talent that, you need to hire in order to build that technology. The personal note, I live in Irvine, California. Before that, for the last 4 years, before that, I was living in San Diego area, a little bit down south, for 12 years. And in terms of Mirage connection, how am I connected, and how did I end up, giving this presentation here? So, first exposure to Mirage was 4 years ago when I just moved to Irvine, and my cousin Dotan Gabbai was part of the program. He came to visit me and he told me all the great things about this program. So that got me very interested. And then later on, I got to know Ellie and Ishai, who, in the community, who asked me, if I can share some of my experience, which led to this presentation that I'm sharing with you guys here today. So last important note here is everything I'm going to share here is my personal experience. I'm not representing Cruise during this presentation. So I'm going to talk about Cruise, through the slides, but this is like just the accumulated, experience, best practices that I used throughout my career to, attract talent, retain talent, and build like a high-performing team. So this is going to be like just like a little disclosure here before we deep dive. Then one last thing for fun, during the presentation, you're going to see pictures that I put almost on every slide. Some of these pictures are pictures that I downloaded from the web. Some of these pictures were generated by AI. I'm going to give you a little quiz here to try and spot which one were downloaded from the web and which one are generated by AI, and then I'll share with you at the end of the presentation the source of all the pictures. So no prizes, no quiz, don't worry, but if I notice that you're not listening, I may ask you on the spot here to tell me what you think. So going into, a second here. Okay, so we're going to start talking a little bit more, and focusing specifically on the first piece of the presentation here, which is about attracting software engineers. There's going to be a lot of references to software industry, software engineers, but the principles, can apply to any talent, any top talent you're looking to hire into your organization. So I will start with, the landscape, what I see today in my experience hiring a lot of people. So, starting with the supply and demand. So there is the people that we're talking about, which are like, very unique experience, strong leadership skills, domain expertise are usually at high demand. There is always short of supply in that space. I think that the space changed significantly over the last 6 months, and that's why I didn't throw any stats in here, besides the only one that I put there. because I've seen a very strong peak with what's happening with generative AI and the competitions that's going on around talent with machine learning experience and Gen AI space. So I think this is shifting significantly, and the competition is getting more and more difficult in that space. So that's one thing that to keep in mind, is that it was always difficult to attract those people, spot them, find them, and make them interested in joining your company. But it's got even more difficult over the last, I would say, 6 months to 9 months with what's going on in the market. So, a second. Another thing that changing the landscape is the whole remote work revolution. So starting with COVID, a lot of companies offering remote work or hybrid models for employees. From one hand, it's actually expanded your pool because now you can hire anywhere in the US. But from the other hand, it's also increased the competition, and people can go after your talent from different states, sometimes from different countries. So it's another aspect that is evolving. Some companies trying to get back in the office for a few days a week, and we'll talk a little bit about how it's impacting engagement later on. But it's another aspect that also changes the landscape. I also want to just share that what I've seen over the years is that the people that are at high demand, the evaluation that they're going through when they're looking into job opportunities really got much broader in terms of the priorities that they consider. So in the past, I would say maybe it was a shorter list of things that they would evaluate. I think today people are trying to make sure that when they join a company, there is a very strong overlap with their values. They're connected to the mission of the company. They see the opportunity for growth. They ask a lot of questions about work-life balance. They want to understand who is the talent currently in the company. Can they learn from these people? Do you have like any known scientists working in that space that I can learn from? And they want to see a compelling mission, right? They want to see something that they can connect to, and that they can feel that this is something that is aligned with what they want to do in their career. And obviously, they always look at the compensation, and compensation need to be attractive and need to be competitive, but it's not the only thing people look at. And I think that when you deal with this type of talent pool, there is much more leverages that you can apply, with your mission and with your value proposition that can attract people even from companies like, in the FANG, or what they call today, MAMA, companies coming into your team, even if it's a small startup, if there is a strong connection and there is a very strong value proposition. So it's something to keep in mind, that the amount of lever that you have when you're trying to attract are not just money, and obviously it's going to be very difficult for you to compete with offers from OpenAI or NVIDIA, but with the right mission, you might have a higher chances. So you should look at all these talents, at all these aspects, and we'll talk about it in a few minutes a little bit more. I also want to just throw like one statistic here that is from, I would say, late last year, talking about tenure that you'll see with the top talent software engineers. It's shockingly low. 69% of the people in that pool are staying in the company less than 2 years. I'm lucky to have many people in my organization that are staying much longer than that, but it takes a lot of effort, and we'll talk about it later. But just know that this is the average, and that's what you're competing with, right? People come for 2 years. If they feel like they have a path to grow, they have a path for learning, they'll stay. If it's an engaging environment, if the team is there. But in many cases, they will quit if they find something that is better aligned with their goals. And then the last thing I want to mention is, as I mentioned earlier, companies in this like $1 trillion+ companies, they are really working and on their mission and on their proposition, and on their employer branding, and they are really providing like very strong competition for smaller companies. And you need to know that you're competing with these companies that they're not just paying more, but they also have very solid package around multiple areas. So you have to pay attention to all of them. So we'll go a little bit deeper now and talk about what our top engineering talent look for, right, as the evaluate. So I spoke a little bit before that about how impactful is the mission, right? So they want to make sure that there is a very strong overlap between what they want to do, what their values, and like what you are offering. And your mission needs to be very clear. It needs to be communicated very easily. It needs to touch on the places where people looking for to join. And you have it's a pretty large spectrum. So sometimes you see companies who are building technologies that are going to change humanity forever, or solutions or technologies that are touching all people around the world, or solutions that impacting people's safety or national security protection. And it's going to be like very compelling to some people. And then on the other extreme, you may have like a company that is building something that is some niche market. Maybe the exposure is low, and there's a lot of work that need to be done in how do you present your mission, how do you understand your mission, how do you attract people to align with it. And you need to know that it's a pretty broad spectrum. You need to find out where you are and how do you make it compelling for people. People looking for meaningful work. So like what is are you utilizing some cutting edge technology? Are you like using state of the art solutions that they can actually come join and learn from it and grow with their career? They're looking for the tech challenges and the growth. Is there like a new technology that you're developing? Is it a complex area? Are they going to have to solve like very complex problems as part of their role in the company? And what is the professional growth, right? Where do they see themselves a year from now, 2 years from now, if they join your company? Usually people in this category looking for autonomy and innovation. So they don't want to come in a company and be managing like a very small scope of area and like driving like a very limited impact. They want to be a part of the decision making. They want to be able to experiment, innovate. They want to influence the product and technology roadmap. And they want to have like strong ownership, right, and accountability. So they're looking for accountability. They're looking for the strong ownership, and that's why they're the people you want to bring in, especially at the beginning as you're building like teams and as you building the foundation to be successful and deliver on your mission. Company culture is very critical. People looking for very collaborative. They want to see open communication, building trust, psychological safety. These are all things that playing big role when people joining, and they're playing big role in engagement and retention and retention of this employee. And obviously, the last piece that I put in here, I always put it at the end because I don't want to put it at the beginning for people to think that that's the most important thing. But obviously, this plays a big role. You can have everything, but if you don't have stability, if the question is, what's your runway, and you're telling the employee that like you have 6 months, for your company before you're going to raise money, they may not join you, for this situation unless there is really big upside for them. So being able to show stability, show your path to profitability, and then showing how you recognize employees and how the compensation is very tied to performance is critical. So I'll stop here. Like some of the things are pretty basic I think, but also just good to build the baseline. So where do you start, right? So where do you start? I think the first place to start is, building your employer brand, right? Like people need to know who you are, need to know what you represent, need to know what your mission is, so they can relate to it. People don't look for jobs in LinkedIn and just match their skill set to a list of skill set that you required for your position and say, yes, that's a good match, I'm going to join. They're looking for much more than that. So you have to build your employer brand. You have to have your mission out there. You have to be able to communicate about it. You have to be able to share about it. People need to understand what's your value, what culture you're trying to build, how's your compensation packages looking. And there is a lot of websites, by the way, out there that really sharing a lot of this information and people making decisions based off the information in these websites. You want to have a good presence in all these channels that really are going to be attracting the people you're looking for. So if it's software engineers, LinkedIn, GitHub, social media, right? Really depending on like where is this talent pool exist and how do they consume, their information, so they can get exposure. And you want to be out there. You want to be able to share your success story. You want to be able to, share your hiring. So if 1 second. So, if you're hiring people into your organization, you want them to go out there and post in LinkedIn that they joined and that they're happy and like what they're doing and what they're working on, so they can come in and like really attract and bringing their friends by doing that. So it's very important to demonstrate your values. Some companies doing behind the scene or like under the hood, like what we did, where we just spend like a big presentation to show the technology and who are the people and like showcase some of the top talent that we have in the organization during that. So these are the type of activities that really help you promote your brand, be out there. So when people think about you, they think about a specific picture of what you represent, and they see if that's something that they feel correlated with and they want to join. And then obviously this needs to go through your whole process, right? So it should be part of your job description. It should be part of your job, job site when people go and search. Everywhere these things should be either promoted and clear to people what you're representing. And the last piece that I put in here, which we're going to focus a lot, because a lot of the other things are very individual and I think require a lot of soul searching for you and your leadership organization, like what values you want to represent and what's your culture and what's your mission. But the last piece that is very important is what is your hiring process look like, and how do you make sure that you have a hiring process that is effective and it's going to ensure that the outcome you're looking for, that you can attract those people, you can find them, you can attract them, you can get them to join your company, you can get them to sign with you. And I'm going to focus a lot on that space. Just like a little quote here from Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, saying that the team you're building is the company you're building. So obviously it's pretty clear that the tolerance for mistakes there are very low, especially when you're a startup company and you're hiring people. The cost of hiring is very expensive, and if you hire the wrong person, not only all the money you spent through the process is money that you lost, but also it can really impact your company culture if you bring the wrong people in. So it's super important, and I want to focus a lot of the time here talking about this piece. Okay, so what is a good recruitment process? So I'm going to start with some high-level principles, and then I'm going to do like a deep dive into like a good example of how to do that at scale. But on the principle level, right? So you want to make sure that you tackle that like any process, right? So the same way you managing processes in your manufacturing line or processing of like your financials, you have to think about hiring process as a process, and then go through the full process lifecycle of like what is your strategy for hiring, how do you design the process for you that really tailored to your team, to your size, how to implement it, how do you measure the success rate of it, which I think is super critical. Many companies don't do that. They don't look at the operational side of hiring, and they just look at the anecdotal data, but then they're missing the big picture of how effective the process is. So measuring and looking in retrospect on your hiring process and success rate and the quality of your interviewer is very critical to ensure that this process is getting better and better, and it's getting optimized, and it's like delivering the results you're looking for. So you're looking first for effectiveness, right? Like at the end of the day, we're hiring for a reason. We want to, get the right people to join us. Some of the metrics, you can look at is like, what is the time to fill a presentation? What's the cost per hire? What is the quality of your hires, right? Like when you look in retrospect, we'll talk about it later. Did you get the right people in? Where are the places where you made a mistake? Why did you make a mistake? How did you course correct for that? You want to have this process to be very efficient, very fast, and automated as much as possible. You're dealing here with an individual that usually have multiple offers, and you don't want to be losing the opportunity just because it takes you too long to get back to them, or too long to get your people to make a decision if they want to hire or not. They have to have a very fast and efficient process. And a key thing, like any process, you have to have continuous calibration, right? So you have to learn from it, improve it, and this especially plays a big role when if you're a startup company and you're the CEO hiring the first 5 people, maybe a lot of that is not relevant for you because like you're going to handpick each one of them and you're going to make your decision and you have all the time in the world to explain your mission and get them interested. But like when you're a big company and you have multiple team hiring 10, 20 people, a month or per quarter, this process needs to be calibrated. You can't afford, one team hiring like lower performance people, another team hiring higher performance people, because you're going to lose the expectation, setting the hiring expectations at a certain level for your whole company. So that's where things are getting complex, right? So how do you make sure that anybody who's hiring is following, similar practices to get you the right talent at the right cost and fast to meet your, company goals. So this continuous calibration is the key, and we'll talk about it a little bit more as we deep dive into the process. As I mentioned, closed loop, right? So you're looking at the whole process from the beginning to the end, from the moment we decide to hire somebody and we start initiate the process to attract somebody, all the way to this person joined us. Were we able to retain him? Yes, no. What's the reason? So the example I'm going to give is really optimized for high scale, large, headcount increase for mid-sized companies, right? Imagine like you need to hire 50, 60 people in a quarter. How do you do it effectively? And I don't want you to copy, this process and apply it to your. What I want you to do is like, as I go through it, think about the principles, think about the thing that's like really relevant for your organization, for the size of your organization, and then how do you optimize, and what are the things that you want to take in at the stage that you're in right now. But as you grow, this can be like a good process that I've been using many years throughout my career to build like high performance team. So we'll deep dive in. The flow chart that I created, I'm just going to go through it and just talk a little bit about the pieces and what's important in them, and just highlight some of the things that are critical. So starting with what is your strategy and what is your budget. So obviously at the end of the day, this whole thing starts with you have a company, you have a mission, you have some budget, and that you have certain talent pool right now with your company, and do you have the right people to get you to the goals you need, right? So you have to do some assessment of understanding, okay, who are the people that I have in the organization, where are the gaps that I need, how can I close these gaps, and then identify the talents that you want to hire. And within that, obviously, what are like the critical and higher priority people that you want to bring in that's going to really enable you to build the framework and the foundation to grow the organization. So different levels, like I want staff engineers, principal engineers, I want managers, I want directors, whatever you need to build. So you have to to build like the skeleton of your organization that is within your budget, and it's aligned with your timeline, so that you know that I need this type of people at this stage and this type of people at this stage. And by the end of this process, like the outcome of that should be like your hiring plan that is aligned with your budget and is aligned with your milestone. And that's the framework that you want to manage as like, the CEO of the company or CFO of the company, or the head of HR of the company, whoever is responsible for that, need to have this framework. And this framework need to be always prioritized, and it should be like established and communicated across the organization, so everybody understands what their budget and what they need to go after. The next step after that is initiation, right? So you want to be able to control how do you initiate and approve new hiring. This is your lever as a CFO or CEO of a company to make sure that the budget is spent correctly. Obviously, the moment you're going to put a plan together, a few weeks later, it's gonna have to change because you're gonna have some budget implication. Goals will change. So you have to have a way to control the initiation and approval process, and you want to have it automated and fast. So this way you can really control it and adjust based on the learning and based on like what you're trying to achieve. And like one thing that I like to do is I always try to empower leaders on either organization to make those trade-offs, based on the budget. So not to tell people you need to hire 5 senior software engineers, but tell them you have a budget to do that. That's your mission. Here is your guidelines in terms of timeline, and come back with a plan, and then let them own it, manage it, and be able to drive the hiring process. The next step is very important. This is like the job description, right? This is like where you want to be able to define like what is the job description, what you're looking for. So here, you want to start with you want to build a mission-focused job description. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this talk, is You don't want to have a list of requirements. You want to have like, what is the mission? What are you trying to achieve? And like really have your value proposition very clear in there, and how people can correlate to it, and how they understand their value in there. You want to be able to be clear about the role, what's the expectation, what's the leveling, what's the scope of this position. And you want to also touch on what is the industry, why do you want people to work in industry? Like, why do I try to convince people to come and work in self-driving industry? And then if they want to work for self-driving, like, why Cruise? And if they want to work for Cruise, like, why Every Foundation, my organization? If it is Every Foundation, you know, why this position specifically? So you need to think about it from these levels, so the whole thing is connected and people can understand through the job description why they want to go after this position. And obviously you have to have the expected skills and skill set and desired skill set and all these things that you'll see in every job description. But again, don't make that your top priority. The top priority is the pieces before. What I recommend after having that and, like, you know, kicking off like this hiring is to start with an intake, right? So intake is, to me, it's a very critical alignment process. This is the first place when things can go wrong, because if your sourcer or if your recruiter doesn't understand what you're looking for because they read the job description, they're going to waste a lot of time bringing you the wrong people. So it's very important at that stage to have an alignment meeting between, you know, the hiring manager, the sourcing teams, the recruitment team, and like really talk about what level you're trying to hire, what are the leadership skills that you're looking for, what is the mandatory experience that you were looking for, where to source from. It's very important, right? Like, you know, I want to look for people in these companies because I know that they have this type of talent that is very interesting for me, and these are the people that I want to go after. And then how to get their interest, how to like really attract them in. And that's, you have to feed this into your sourcers because they may not have the full context of all the experience you have in the industry, and you want to empower them to go and get you the right people. The other thing that is also important to do in this stage is to define who's the panel. So you eventually you're going to get people through the process, and they're going to have to come for an interview, and they're going to have to go through a full evaluation to make sure that these are the right people for your organization. And building the panel is very important. I usually recommend doing it like early on. And the panel is like, who are the people that will evaluate the right fit for this individual. And the few things that I usually look at is, you know, how do you evaluate all the different areas? So you want to have somebody who can evaluate the technology, technical skills, domain expertise. If it's somebody that, you know, looking for leadership, technical leadership or people leadership, how do you evaluate that he has that? So have a mix of people that each one of them can like really look at one or two areas. So the feedback you're going to get at the end of the process when you all get together will be complete, and will have all the different angles to give you the right decision, to support your decision. Two more things that I usually, sorry, one second. Two more things that are also super important in this process. One is the bar raiser. So bar raiser is a concept that is, you know, really common in FANG company, which is like somebody who has a lot of experience and good track record of hiring the right people. And that's why this whole process of scoring success rate is important. So like every time people come and give their feedback, hire or no hire, you keep all this information, and then like you aggregate that at the end. And that's going to give you a good visibility and understanding of like within all these interviewers that you have in an organization, who are the top people that like can really spot good talent. And you want to instrument those people into the different panels, especially for the critical position as the bar raiser. And usually, you know, some companies give them all the way to veto a decision. So like, even if everybody say yes and they say no, you don't hire. But in many cases, it's not like that, but they're able to like express opinion, and like, you know, that they're the bar raiser, you know, that they have a lot of experience, they hired a lot of people, and you want to listen to them and understand like what their concerns and like, and have the follow-up that's needed. So having this closed loop is super important because, you know, you can identify those bar raiser and like establish them as your calibration point across the organization. They can be from different teams. Like, you know, you can have somebody from your hardware team be a bar raiser for a software development and just look at cultural fit. They don't need to ask any question about software, but they will at least make sure that like the value that you're looking for and the culture that you're looking for is calibrated across the organization. Another thing that is important for some individuals, like individuals that want to make sure that they can learn from somebody in the organization, they want to see those people in the panel itself. So you want to have in the panel relevant people for the relevant candidates that are like expert in their field. So as they meet with them and they go through the interview, they think about, I want to work with this person. I see a lot of opportunity for me to grow. So once this is established, the process goes, this is like, you know, when sourcing, so sourcing, you know, there's a lot of methods there. Obviously, the best way to source people is through referral programs, right? So if you have strong people in your organization, have them come bring their friends. They're usually going to bring like people that are in the same level. If there are people that like, we're able to make big impact, we're very successful engineers in other companies. Referral programs are very good. You need to have some incentives around it. People spending time, bring their friends in. You want to give them some incentive through that process. You have to have strong online presence as I explained earlier. And then, as I mentioned, publish who did you hire, company spotlight. So this way, this information is available for people. They see who are the talent you attracted, and they might come to you and apply for the position you're looking for. Another pool that is also interesting to look at is eligible, rehires. So people that worked for you and left. Many times they will want to come back. So it's an easy pool to pull from if it's a person that left for a reason that it's okay for you to bring them back. At this point, the continuous calibration begin, right? So the sourcer goes out there, he gets like 20 people, he meets with the hiring manager, you go through these people, you find out if these are the right people for you. If not, you iterate on like the job description, you iterate on the target, and you get them to a place where they can really pinpoint the right people that you're looking for. If somebody passes, the alignment between the hiring manager and the sourcer, and you want to bring them into the next step, we usually do, pre-screening. So this is like an initial assessment, exploratory call, where you try to really look for a good match between the motivation of the individual and the opportunity. Really try to understand, if it is a potential match. Sometimes, it's needed to do some technical or leadership pre-screening, so do that in that phase as well. And then again, in this phase, should do another calibration. If you find out that like people coming into your pre-screening are not what you were looking for, then go back, find out why, and optimize the process for it. But that's a key point, because at this point, like, from this point on, you're going to start spending a lot of money, because it's going to be a full panel, full interviews, 5-4 hours of people spending time on the individual. Before you gather, you want to make sure that you got the right people in. So it's important to measure success. How many people coming from sourcing to pre-screening to next level, and figure out this funnel and optimize it. On-site is like when we finish those pre-screening and we say, this is the person that we think has a good chance to pass our interview, then could be a good match. And at this point, the whole panel interviewing the person. Evaluation is happening in both directions. You always need to remember that as you interview the person and you're asking him question about his experience, he's also looking at you and trying to figure out if like what you published out there as your values is actually happening. Like if you say that your company is all about transparency, communication, inclusion, and they feel through the process that that's not true, that's going to create a big gap that may distract them from continuing with your process. So you need to make sure that there is a full alignment in there during the interview process as well. There's some other areas here of like that are important is how do you get the feedback from the people in the panel? How do you make sure that the feedback is coming in a way that it's easy to correlate and it's easy to understand between the teams? Try to not influence. So I usually don't let people read each other's decisions or feedback until they get into the room and talk about and make decision. This way nobody influences the other person, unless there is the red flag that's coming through the process where you want to deep dive. But if there is no red flags, let everybody from their own opinion capture their own feedback, and then get together into this next step, which is the feedback and decision making, right? So in this session, we want everybody to come in, share their feedback about the individual. They have to make a decision, hire or don't hire. Don't leave it open, because that's a key thing for people to train and learn from it, and a key metric for you to follow in the future. So everybody comes in, and then you share the feedback. 3 people said yes, 2 people said no. Understand why people said yes, understand why people said no, and then make a decision out of this meeting if you want to move forward with the hire, no hire, or maybe follow up to another team. Maybe it's a good person that you want to hire, but just doesn't have the right skill set for your team. So use that. And again, calibrate and automate the process as much as possible. So you want to adjust the screening if people went through this process and failed. That's where you want to go back and understand how come they got all the way here. And everybody said no, there must be something broken in the process. Come back, fix it, and adjust it. Say you decided to move forward and you want to move forward with the candidate and decide to hire him, then this is where you want to start sharing the decision. Address all the last concerns that the individual interviewer had. it's super important. You don't want to leave any of these concerns before you go to the offer. So before you go into the offer, make sure you clear out everything. So when you talk about the offer, there is nothing else, because that's going to be your opportunity to close. And align with compensation, scope, impact, expectation. So this way, when the person leaves, he knows, he passed the interviews, you like him, you want him to join your company, and there is nothing else that's going to block him from this decision, as long as the offer will be what he's looking for. In the offer stage, I want to always make sure that we ensure that there is a good match between the candidate motivation and opportunity. Reinforcing the mission, presenting all the onboarding. So people need to know, you're joining us, here is all the things that are going to be available for you to get up to speed quickly. People in this level, they want to come in, they want to make sure that you have the right tools and processes to help them get up to speed quickly. So share with them what they're doing, give the offer, and then identifying the follow-up action that's needed. Sometimes, somebody is debating because he has two offers and he's trying to understand, which way to go. So there is a lot of selling that can happen after that in terms of closing, being able to close. So it can be, understanding follow-up conversation to understand any additional concern that the employee has. Be positive in this process. Try not to badmouth any of the competition. If they have two offers, it's not a good practice to talk about the other one. Just talk about you, talk about why this person should join you. And then really look at what are the things that they value. So if it's a junior employee, they usually they look for growth, they look for mentorship, they look for mobility within the organization. Support that. The senior person, they usually look for the scope, impact, who are the colleagues, what they're going to learn from them. So share this information. That's going to be very important for them to make the decision to join you or not. We used to do nice demos for people. So we would put them on the car and let them try out the product before it was available for the public for top talent, and that helped a lot closing. So you just pair them with one of your top people, they meet, they take a drive together, they talk. I think 90% success rate with that. Anybody who was not sure after a drive came back and signed. So it's if you have a unique product, if you have something that people don't have exposure to and you can expose, it could be a way for you to close. If you decline, after this whole process, you gave an offer and the person decided not to go, then this is a place where you can have to again go back and do the full retrospective and understand what happened, and then adjust your process so you don't end up in this position again. So that's why all these KPIs and all these metrics are important throughout the whole process. So you can have a holistic view of where you are, and you can adjust the different point in the process to increase your success rate and make sure that your process is effective and efficient. Once the person joined you, okay, I want to also talk a little bit about that. So the person joined you, right? It's not enough to give them an offer and give them a start date. You have to really start establishing what your 30, 60, 90 days plan for them. And this is extremely important because you want to be able to understand if what you hired is what you thought that you're hiring, and establishing those goals for them for 30, 60, 90 days really help you out to evaluate the performance during this period, and then understand if this is exactly what you're looking for. And if the answer is yes, that's perfect. Now focus on retention, and we'll talk about it next. If the answer is no, then what did you miss? Can you improve the situation? You need to manage out. All these considerations come into play. And then that also comes back and updating the panelist success rate. So if somebody said yes and the person joined and still didn't work out, you also want to capture that to understand why. And that's where you can really identify your bar raisers that you can use for future hiring. So I'll stop here. This is kind of high level process. I know it's a lot of details, but this is something that I've done many years. I can tell you it's working at scale, and it's very successful if you implement it correctly and you tailor it to your needs and you automate as much as possible, and it can really get you massive hiring at high quality in a company. How are we on timing?
Great.
We're good. Okay. So I'm gonna go a little bit into retaining top talent right now. Just some of my experiences there. I think that worked out for me, and then we'll go into Q&A, so you can ask questions on anything that I presented so far. So what does it take, right, to retain people, right? So once they join you, right? I see engagement as one of the strongest indicator of are these people going to stay or not. And engagement is, to me, is the sum of belonging, impact, growth, and autonomy. So the more, just like statistically, you can look at many studies, the higher the engagement rate is, the lower your attrition or the higher retention rate are. So it's pretty clear that that's the place where you need to invest. And I put here a lot of questions of like, how do you figure out, are people feeling, that they belong to the company, right? To understand the company mission. If not, like, how do you make sure that this is there? Are they connected to it? Do you feel bonding with their team? Do you feel comfortable to be yourself in the workspace? Do you feel recognized for your work, which is a big aspect of what key people in the organization? We'll talk about it a little bit more. Do you feel psychological safety, and be able to express your opinion, especially for people who are building safety critical systems? This is like a key metric or a key element to observe and make sure that you focus on, because you want people to be able to come and tell you when they feel that something you're doing is unsafe, or when they have any concern before this can like destroy your company. So this is super important all the time, but even more important when you're dealing with safety critical systems or safety critical product. So belonging is the key. You have to be able to ask this question. There are many ways to get this information. People doing surveys, people doing like panels, but like you have to understand, engage. Like how is your team feeling, and how do you increase their belonging? In terms of like the impact, people need to understand that the work they're doing is like impacting the mission, right? If they don't see this connection, it's very difficult. They tend to stay in their down to the weeds in the specific areas that they're focusing on, don't have the connection, don't understand how the work they're doing is moving anything in the company, and they basically can feel like they're not impactful. So it's important to get this connection. It's important to have those company goals coming from the beginning, and connecting them to the specific team charter and to the specific team goals so people understand what they're doing. But it's also important that you have a very strong recognition processes in your organization where you can show people that, you understand what they did, you see the impact that they did, and you're able to recognize it and connect it to, their growth, visibility, compensation. Growth is the big one, right? So if people feel like, they have no way to grow, professionally or from career perspective because they got to a level where there is like nobody else who can mentor them, or they don't get the training they need to be successful in their job, or they don't understand even how your job leveling. So you can have like an amazing company, people have a lot of room to grow, but they don't understand how they can go from their current level to the next level, or how they can increase their impact. Then they're basically lost in this organization, and they don't understand what will get them to the next level. So you have to be able to make sure that people understand growth, understand your leveling, understand your promotion processes, understand how compensation works, that they can really engage in that process and figure out how to grow in the company. And as I mentioned at the beginning, autonomy, right? They need to feel empowered to make decisions, influence technical direction, and really understand if the leadership in the organization are measuring them based on the outcome or based on the task. And that's something that is very important, to people that are very talented and like looking to make like bigger impact. They don't want to be measured on like their line of code or anything along that line. They want to be measured on the outcome, and some of the outcomes that actually come from cross-functional collaboration, from innovation, and not from like doing a specific task in the list of things that need to happen. I always have this quote of joy of engineering. This is like how I see it, right? So people, specifically in software, what keep them engaged, they want to see that they're building product that people love and use, and they also want to make sure that they have the environment to support them to do that efficiency. So you can be working on amazing product, but it's like so difficult to get things done that this can really impact your engagement. So you want to have both things in the organization, like really pay attention to anything that is tech debt, anything that is heavy processes that you can clear, focus on that. That's going to go a long way. So a few things that are related to connection. So for people who are to feel connected, especially in the world of hybrid employment and remote, right? They need to feel connected, and you can see that people feel more connected to the organization as they see more recognition. So how often are they meeting with their managers? How often do they hear feedback about their performance? The more often it happens, the more you give them feedback, the more connection they feel to the company, the more engaged they will be. There is a very strong sense correlation in terms of sense of connection and employee belonging with this recognition, and it's pretty much the number one driver for connection, right? Is being able to understand that you've been recognized for what you're doing and that the impact you're making. I put some stats here, you can read through them, but I think the key point here is that you have to have a good recognition system in place. I'm going to talk a little bit about what could be a good framework. So just like 3 slides here talking about like higher level framework, and I think with that we'll conclude and open for questions. So if you look at what is their engagement engine for your organization, right? How do you build engagement? So it always starts with mission, as I mentioned at the beginning. So do you have a clear mission and their clear company top level KPIs, so everybody understand like what you're trying to achieve, which KPIs you're trying to drive financially, technologically, whatever it is. It need to be very clear to people, and it needs to be very simple, so everybody understands in the organization. And then this needs to be propagating down into all the different teams. So every team who has a charter or a roadmap or a plan need to be able to connect the KPIs that they're driving into this top level KPIs. So there's clear connection is happening in there, and they understand why the thing that they're doing is important and how the work that they're doing and moving a specific KPI is going to move the top level KPI. If you build this connection and you have clear communications around it and a system to keep this information across the organization, showing the progress you're making, what the changes, what are the wins, of like the team's KPIs and the mission and the company KPI. If you have a mechanism to share that, that's a very key engine that keep people connected, and that's what I call the outer loop, right? So this is from the company level all the way to this individual who is in team and like working on a specific task. How do you connect? Then there is the inner loop. The inner loop is, okay, what's happening, within your HR, people organization, talent organization, to make sure that people understand, their career and they get what they need to be successful. And here, as I mentioned at the beginning, you have to have a very clear job leveling system with expectation that everybody understand, like, how can they move up in the organization, either upward or lateral move, still, whatever that, is aligned with the goals and career and what they want to do in the company, which obviously need to align with your business needs. You want to enable that. So mobility is something that I've seen in many companies as a very key engagement. Some people, work in a team, they got to a point where like they, learned everything they can in that specific domain, they understand everything, but they don't see a path to grow to the next level. Allowing mobility, let them move to another team, another manager, learning a new space can like really retain them for maybe another 2 years and keep them engaged and like making the impact you need. You want to make sure that you have talent reviews. So this is something that I'm very passionate about. I wrote Xly, some people doing it monthly, quarterly. I do it, at least quarterly, where I basically look at all my organization and then understand from all the organization, what is the growth opportunity, where is the attrition risk, where are my top talent, and what is their action plan. So I want to make sure that everybody that is like top talent, high attrition risk, has a very clear path to stay in the company. And then the next cohort would be anybody that's attrition risks, even if it's not the top talent, and I want to retain, what is their path forward. And you have to have this map and you have to work on it with the leadership team. So it's something that like you always evaluate because it's changing all the time. And this is your mechanism to keep people, engaged and staying with the company because they see the path. You want to obviously have a performance review. It's like common, every company, is doing that. So it's a key, I think it's a key element here of evaluating people's performance, giving them the right feedback that they need, calibrate across the organization, and be able to showcase and recognize the things that you care about, right? So who are the people that are going to be getting the largest bonus, at the end of the year? These are the people that like showing the behaviors, value, and impact that you want others to show. And by recognizing that and setting the bar across the organization, you're going to encourage more and more of this behavior. So this is very important, to share and have a robust system in place for that. And obviously, this needs to be very tied, to compensation. So it's not just, giving people a tap on the shoulder. On the back, you have to actually show them that you're actually going to compensate them based on their performance as they're meeting the bar that you have. And establish a system that supporting people growth in the organization. So in my organization, everybody that is a staff plus need to have at least one person or two that they mentor, and their job is to get them to the next level. So by doing that, you're distributing the talent growth in your organization, and you're not just limited to your engineering managers or senior engineering manager. Now you have all the people that are the senior technical leads, each one of them taking under the wing at least one or two people, and they're all pushing your organization to the next level. And it should be part of the performance evaluation. So it's not enough that you are brilliant, coder, and you're able to write, all this new function. If you didn't influence anybody around you and help them grow, then you didn't meet the requirement from my perspective on all the different dimensions that I'm looking. And the last piece here is about engagement survey. So that's a tool that is very important. It's a system that I put in place and in every company, and it's basically checking all these parameters that I was talking about, belonging, psychological safety, list of questions. There are many tools out there, but the key here is to run it anonymously every quarter or every couple quarter. And the most important thing is look at this data, understand it, understand where the trends are, and build action plans. People are going to do it with you once or twice. And the third time, you're going to send them the survey. If they don't see that you're making any changes, you're just going to lose all trust, and it's going to become a joke. So you have to make sure that every time you do it, there is a full action plan. You communicate, clearly where the gaps are, what you're doing about them, and how do you plan to improve. And then you have an action plan that actually show the improvement that you're looking for in each one of these areas. When you're looking at top talent, it's a subset, within this, group of your full talent that you're focusing on engagement, right? So understanding who are they and ensuring that they have, again, the good overlap with what their interest is, recognizing and showcasing their behavior. You really have investment in your career path. So that's in their career path. That is the talent review that I was talking about earlier. You have to review their compensation all the time compared to market data. You don't want to have people who joined you 3 years ago and you just gave them 3% increase, but now their value in the market is 50%, and they're just going to leave because of that. So you have to make sure that you calibrate with market and you make those jumps to people that are important to retain. Build your bench. I can't emphasize that more. This is people tend to believe that the people they have in the organization will stay forever, and they put a lot of trust on them and a lot of accountability on them, and then one day they leave, and you look around and you find out that there are very few people left in that team who can take this work. So building the bench is super important, and that goes into mentorship and the thing that I was discussing earlier. And then setting a high bar. So these top talent are the people where they're looking for accountability, they're looking for scope, responsibility, impact, and you want to give them a very high bar and challenge them so they can feel that they challenge and they grow. So I think with that, I covered everything that I wanted to cover. These are the pictures. The one on the left are the one was done by AI. The two on the right are pictures that I took from the web with the human face next to them, which, by the way, the human face was done by AI. And I'll open it for questions.
Yaron, thank you so much. That was a very informative presentation. I really appreciated the details. I'm in operations, so this is a lot of applicable tools for me to use. That was wonderful. Thank you. As he said, if anyone wants to unmute themselves and ask Yaron directly, let's get started.
I hope I didn't go too fast.
I think you gave such a detailed presentation. You had everything there for us. Well, Yaron, is there anything, maybe in a synopsis of what you would like to leave us? Maybe your top 3 points that you'd like to leave with us today?
Yeah, top 3 points. Well, I think first one is that you need to understand that that's part of your job, right? Many times, people going into higher level positions, right, and they really busy with raising money and really busy with product road mapping and product market fit, and all these things are very, very important, and these are the things that are going to determine if you're going to be successful or fail as a company. But the people that's with you on the bus are the people that will take you to your direction. It doesn't matter what you have and what you build if you don't ensure that you have the right people on the bus and that they're staying with you through your journey. So I would say that to me is the top thing. You have to work in that space and you have to invest in that space. And I know that successful leaders in big organizations spending 20-30% of their time hiring. If you go and ask startup small mid-sized companies, you'll find out that that's one of the big things that they're doing, right? Is identifying what the gap, what they need, go after that, and trying to find and bring those top talent that can go in and make an impact and change the things that you're looking to change. So in my opinion, you just need to look at it as a big part of your job and spend time on it and invest in it, and build it in a way that you don't have to be in the details, but you can get enough information that will give you the confidence that the right people are joining the company and that you're building the culture, value, and processes that will help the company be successful. So this is, to me, I would say if I had one thing, that would be the biggest thing. Just understand that you need to work there and do it. And I'm personally very passionate about it. I pride myself on being able to go very deep technically and really sit in a design review and give people feedback on a specific capability. But I enjoy as much as I enjoy technology and design review, the people piece and the people part. And I think that being able to build high performance organization, just made my career so much more rewarding and fun. Knowing that you have the right people around you that will help you be successful.
That's excellent. Thank you. And we actually do have a question. From fact, it says a lot of things that you presented require alignment between the executive management to make this a policy across the organization. He's wondering how and at what point in the company life were you able to convince management that they should dedicate time to establish all of this formally?
That's a very, very good question. So, so I think what I try to present here is I try to present what is the end state. If you're a big company, you're hiring massively, you have the right people, the right recruitment team, the right talent acquisition team, the right sourcing, the right talent operation. That's what I would build. And this is variation of that exists today, in every big company. If you go try to get hired to Apple, Netflix, any big company, or even mid-sized company, you'll see very similar processes. I think that you won't get to that level, in a small company, but there are some ingredients in there that you want to apply. Even in a small startup, as long as you're not the only one hiring and there is a panel around you, that's already a place to start. And when I joined, Brain Corporation, the company I was mentioning earlier, I was hiring 3-4 people a quarter. It was very, very small growth, and I could have done it by myself. And the process that I put was much, much, much lighter than that. I didn't have to go and get alignment with the company. But the moment we raised $120 million from SoftBank, and we needed to get 100 people into the company, it was very clear that if you don't put a process like that in place, you may end up with a team that you don't want. And that was a key, and the motivation and drive for that is really with the effectiveness and the end result. If you go to the CEO of a company and say, okay, you want not to go and hire 100 people, what's the worst case scenario and what's the best case scenario, and how much it would cost you if you hire the wrong people, and then with that you can motivate the right processes that are necessary for you to increase the outcome, the successful outcome of this. So that's what I've done at Brain to build something similar to that. And at Cruise, we fine-tune the existing process as we scaled up the organization, also for the same reasons. But it's all at the end of the day, it's all motivated by the end result of how much, like, what is your opportunity cost, how much will it cost you to hire the right person into the company, how fast you need them, and what do you have to have in place in order to make that happen. And if you build that case, I think you'll be able to get the alignment, for the leadership to a version of that. Like, again, I'm saying this is like extreme. I purposely presented the extreme case because I wanted to make sure that you get the full picture, but you can tailor it to much smaller and still be effective, and still be successful if you're doing like a reasonable size hiring.
Excellent. And we have another question from Tali. How do you identify poorly fitting employees, and what should be the process of weeding them out?
Oh, that's another 1 hour presentation. So I'll answer that in a few minutes. So there are many different processes that are being, or like, methods that are being applied in different companies to do that. I think that it all starts with setting the right, expectation from employees, and like having an established bar of like, what you expect a software engineer, junior software engineer, senior software engineer, staff software engineer, and make sure that they understand what the expectation and they're calibrated with that, and they know that they're not, performing. So it's something that will become very apparent the moment you start calibrating across, and you basically say, hey, I have a company with like 50 people. Let's group all my software engineers level 4 and just look at their impact over the last quarter. And as you go through this process, it's going to be very clear to you as like everybody comes and present the cases of like why this employee is, is a top performer and why this employee is not a top performer. You're going to end up this calibration process. You'll know very quickly who are like, your top 5% and who are your, lowest 5%, bottom of 5%, because this process, by itself going to build that. And that's going to create this muscle and bar. And I can tell you, like, when I go into calibration meetings with my team here at Cruise, the bar is pretty well established. After doing it like multiple times, people come present a case, it's like within minutes we say, yes, this person is above expectation, below, this promotion worth going forward with or not. But you have to build this, this bar yourself, and then make sure that your leadership team around you holding the same bar. And then it's going to be very clear where these people are. I usually look at multiple dimensions as I evaluate people performance. If you look at like, say, like a senior person, right? So I usually look at multiple dimensions. So one is like, what is their impact? Are they able to, really deliver on the expectation? You had to build this feature, you had to build this design, you had to build this product, you had to sell this amount of product. We're able to do that or not. The second dimension is, how are you working cross-functionally? Because there is very little things you can do by yourself. So are you able to collaborate effectively with others? Is the feedback you're getting from others around this person collaboration? Are the evidence there that he's able to engage across the organization and deliver impact with people across? That's the second dimension. The third dimension that I always look at is mentorship. So who around you did you help grow in the organization? Because like I want to see you driving and improving other people around you. And the fourth thing is like what did you do to improve everybody's work around you? So did you establish like new tools? Did you introduce new technology? Did you establish a new system that makes everybody around you efficient? And if people are delivering in all these four dimensions, they're usually going to be like at least meeting my expectations, sometimes even exceeding my expectation. But if they don't deliver on all the four, then it's a question: are they in the right level? Are they in the right role? In terms of like how to manage out, so this is the it depends on which country you are and what's the the expectation and like what the process is you need to follow. But I think that if there is a clear alignment between you and the employee of what's your expectation and where he is compared to that, or she is compared to that in terms of like performance, the steps from there are usually very simple. Like either the person will understand and will just live by themselves. You don't need to go and manage them out. Most people don't want to be in that environment. So if you try to help them and they're still not successful, and you give them constant feedback that they're not meeting the expectation, you show them why and you keep the evidence, they're usually going to live with themselves. And if not, you're just going to have enough evidence to do that and perform, like, what they call here in the US performance improvement plan that can lead to termination. So there are processes with HR that you can do. But I think the key here is that if you have disconnect, like this person thinks that he's an A star and you believe that like he's a C star or a C performer, not star, then you have a big problem. And that's where you have to have this difficult conversation. I hope that helps.
Do we have any other questions? Oh, actually, we have one more. Can you say a few words about succession planning for key talent?
Yeah, that's a very good point. So my experience and like what I've been doing, throughout my career, as part of the talent review process that I was mentioning earlier, for every person that holding a critical role, it could be either like leadership position that there is nobody who can take on the leadership in that space, or if it's a critical technical talent, so a person who is the only one who understands this piece of the product, and like if he leaves, like there is nobody around, you have to build that succession plan proactively, and you have to identify those people who can take over if this person leaves tomorrow, or if just like gets sick. Like it doesn't need to even have even be attrition. It could be like something that's completely unplanned, and then you're stuck in a situation where nobody else can do what they do. So I always make sure that as part of the talent review that I'm doing, I have a very clear map of like what is my talent, where what are the areas where I have coverage, and then any place that I see that I'm either with a single point of failure, right? So I have only one person who's a C++ developer in this team. I would start moving people around and build this redundancy everywhere I can. And people actually accept it very well, because if you present it to them like, hey, this is the person that I want you to grow to be you, they take pride of it, and they're like, okay, I'm going to help this person grow and be as successful as I am, so I can take on more responsibility, and I don't need to keep managing or maintaining this piece of code, or like managing this like production line, or whatever the situation is. So being able to pair those people together and like really help them, build up for each other, is the key. And this is especially painful, when you're dealing with a company that's building, critical cloud services, where you have, the need to have people available for pager duty and support. And you can see that this is the extreme case of talent conflict, where you basically have only one person who can wake up in the middle of the night to turn a server on. And this is becoming very apparent. So this is like this extreme case that shows you exactly where your areas of lack of redundancy are, but you want to be proactive around it and build the organization around it.
Excellent.
Good questions.
Excellent. Well, Yaron, thank you so much on behalf of Paul Mirage, the Mirage Institute. We highly appreciate you taking the time to enlighten our Mirage tribe and educating us. So many wonderful points you brought to the table today. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Awesome.
And I see you next week. Take care.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.